and apostles of good milestone, all praises to Yahweh, Hashem, Yahushai, Hashem, Kakadash. Shalom to the one that Israelites, Zechariah 13:8, which are so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Okay, also you can say Indians, but Indians is a little bit dangerous because somebody might think it means basically the real, Indians, okay, in Southern Asia, which is not the case, but can be the case also. So it's basically talking about the Native Americans first and foremost, as well as bloodline who are still pressed together according to the book of Jeremiah 50:33, but to whom so belong the adoption, the glory, the covenants, the giving of the law, the service of God, and the promises according to the book of Amos chapter 9 verse 4, Ecclesiastes 10:7. I have seen servants upon horses and princes, walking as servants upon the earth, KJV 16:11. Thou art inexcusable, O man, whosoever thou art that judgest. For wherein thou judgest another, thou condemnest thyself, for thou that judgest doest the same things. Yeah, like this is the main or the common thing here in this European world. Okay, but in general, that you judge people for what they do. Okay, doesn't matter what it is. Okay, it's basically when you judge, the problem starts. Because some people, maybe do the same thing, but they don't judge others, they just do it. Okay, so really, of course, that's why it says, O man, whosoever thou art that judgest, for wherein thou judgest another, thou condemnest thyself, for thou that judgest doest the same things. But we are sure that the judgment of God is according to truth against them which commit such things. And thinkest thou this, O man, that judgest them which do such things, and doest the same, that thou shalt escape the judgment of God? Yeah, people think, they can act like, for example, how do they call themselves? Yeah, the Romanians. Okay, the Romanians. People think that they are some kind of alien nation or something. No, there's obviously somebody out of that folk, okay, who is actually doing good, actually doing what is needed, okay, and that's why you have the Book of Revelation talking about out of every nation, every tongue, out of every people, okay. Okay, for you hypocrites out there, this is Revelation 7 and 9. After this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues. Okay, which means basically all nations that you would, consider a nation, which the Romanians are, of course, a nation. Which you have this Dracula dude. They call him Dracula. Okay, but he was Graf. Okay, of, it's kind of like he defeated a lot of Gomer, I believe, Gomer people. Okay. Wait. So Graf Dracula was from Romania, right? German. Okay, there's of course this Edomite fantasy story about him, which there might be some things to it that actually would be how they really were, like he being cruel. Okay, because if you put wood in the ass of a man, then you're really cool. Okay, forget all that other stuff, really. Okay. Count Dracula. Okay. Yes. So Esau makes him a vampire, which and people and tongues stood before the throne and before the lamp, and I saw some documentaries about that dude. Okay, and the only proof that I have is that he came from that and that country, that and that castle, if you will. Okay, and that he did that and that actions, especially to his adversaries, his enemies. Okay. I don't know about his family. I don't know about his woman, if he had a woman or not, and what woman. Okay, maybe if you have a castle, you might be one of those who has a woman. Okay, who knows? Okay, but yeah. Okay, I only have proof that he lived and that he had a castle, and I believe it was in which castle. Wait, Castle of Dracula maps. Okay, because I forgot it already where it was. Okay, I'm always looking up new information. That's why it's impossible to remember every last detail of what I go into. And yeah, it's in Yeah, it's basically the border between Transylvania and Wallachia. Okay, so it's not really. So is it Transylvania or not? Because I was playing Monopoly on a mobile phone, and guess what? There was a map. I could change the normal map into a Transylvania map, and it really had, of course, this vampire style to it. But yeah. So Castle Dracula maps, Google Maps. So let's go into Google Maps. Yeah, it's basically on the border, right? Yeah, so just to get the Bran Castle is a tourist attraction in Transylvania, so it's on the border, but it's still in Transylvania. Okay. Flat Romania. The residents of Vlad the Dirt. Okay, Prince of Wallachia, also known as Vlad the Impaler. They believe inspiration for the character Dracula. Okay, which this Middle Ages stuff, man, is highly strange, man. Okay, in today's world, a lot of stuff is highly strange. Okay, what happened? But trust me, this time, this 2025, and from here on, is even more strange, and that's the interesting. That's the interesting thing. Okay. stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. Yeah. So if anybody says anything about all people of a nation, then you are lying, because obviously not all people from a certain nation, doesn't mean what nation you mean, okay, are like that negative picture what you have of them. Okay, that's not possible, as we read it here. Okay, just like we can read it here. Okay, so you have to prove otherwise. Clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. Exactly. Okay, so it doesn't matter what you think of these nations, there's still somebody righteous out of these nations, coming out of these nations, I mean. Okay, doesn't matter what you think. Okay, like Hitler, okay, which a lot of that stuff is not, you have no evidence for it. Okay, a lot of stuff that is said about Hitler is not true. Okay, so really we don't know, basically. It's like, if you don't have a key detail, then the whole story is a lie, just as we know it from the truth. Okay, it's just like the truth. A small leaven, okay, leaven at the whole lump. Is that not a scripture? I believe so. Okay, so what happens is, you tell any kind of stuff about Hitler, but really you don't know the key detail. Okay, you say everything about even about Amalek, his main enemy. Okay, but you know that there's a detail that you have no evidence, basically. Okay, today, think about it. The media that is pushed is from Amalek. Okay, so the enemy of Hitler is telling about Hitler. Okay, the enemy of the one who, it's like, I mean, what is this? Okay, so of course at least you should not expect that, that everything what they say, okay, is 100% accurate. Doesn't make sense. Okay, if you really believe that makes sense, then then really you don't know who Hitler was, you don't know who Amalek is, and you don't know, you just don't know. You see, so that's why you judge, but you don't know, right? So I'm not for Hitler, I'm not for Amalek, I'm not for nobody. I'm just for not even Israel, okay? I'm for the 144,000 Hebrew Israelite men elect, okay? And 1/3 Hebrew Israelite woman and child. Okay? So you can understand. Or despisest thou the riches of his goodness and forbearance and long suffering, not knowing that the goodness of God leadeth thee to repentance? But after thy hardness and impenitent heart treasurest up unto thyself wrath against the day of wrath and revelation of the righteous judgment of God, who will render to every man according to his deeds. To them who by patient continuance in well-doing seek for glory and honor and immortality, eternal life, but unto them that are not continuous, okay, and do not obey the truth, but obey unrighteousness, indignation and wrath, tribulation and anguish upon every soul of man that doeth evil, of the Jew first, which doesn't mean that 1948er fake Jew small heads. Okay, it means obviously first and foremost the tribe of Judah and every other tribe of Israel, which are 11 other tribes. In the kingdom you have 12 tribes, okay, 12 gates, okay, 12 stalls on the breastplate. Who will render to every man according to his deeds, to them who by patient continuance in the well-doing seek after the glory and honor and the mortality. And also, okay, of the Jew first, and also to the Gentile, of the Gentile, okay. Tribulation and anguish upon every soul of man that doeth evil, of the Jew first, and also of the Gentile. Yeah, the Jacob's trouble starts with Israel, okay. The judgment begins at the house of God, which we're in right now, if you don't understand. Okay, this might seem as a normal time, but really it's the judgment of Yahweh Shem Shai, and that's why you have Israel so fucked up. Like, it really seems like Israel is fucked up like never before. Verse 11, for there is no respect of persons with God, for as many as have sinned without law shall perish without law, and as many as have sinned in the law shall be judged by the law. For not the hearers of the law are just before God, but the doers of the law shall be justified. For when the Gentiles, which have not the law, do by nature the things contained in the law, these have not the law, are a law unto themselves. Which shew the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and their dogs the mean, while accusing or else excusing one another. In the day when God shall judge the secrets of man by Yahweh Shai according to my gospel. Behold, thou art called a Jew, and restest in the law, and makest thy boast of God, and knowest his will, and approvest the things that are more excellent, being instructed out of the law, and art confident that thou thyself art guide of the blind, a light from them of them which are in the darkness, an instructor of the foolish, a teacher of babes, which has the form of knowledge and of the truth in the law. Thou therefore which teachest another, teachest thou not thyself? Thou that preachest a man should not steal, thou doest steal. You see, thou that sayest a man should not commit adultery, doest thou not commit adultery? Doest thou commit adultery? Thou that abhorrest idols, doest thou commit sacrilege? Thou that makest thy boast of the law, through breaking the law, dishonorest thou God? For the name of God is blasphemed among the Gentiles to you, as it is written, for circumcision verily profited, if thou keep the law, but if thou a breaker of the law, thy circumcision is made uncircumcision. Therefore, if the uncircumcision keep the righteousness of the law, shall not the uncircumcision be counted for circumcision? Yeah, that's why it's not important to, if somebody finds the truth, to just say like, oh, you have to circumcise yourself, as soon as possible. Of course, as soon as possible, but the main and first thing is another thing, if you don't know. And I always bring this in my videos, okay? Hopefully I don't have to repeat it too much, okay? Okay, the first thing is not be circumcised tomorrow, okay? Especially if you have sometimes a lot of costs coming with that, okay? Gentile. Yeah. This is a part of a broader set of guidelines given to the Gentile, Christians or Israelites by the Council of Jerusalem, which also included abstaining from things offered to idols, from fornication, and from things strangled. The rationale behind this prohibition is that the life of a creature is considered to be in its blood, and therefore consuming blood would be akin to consuming the life itself. Yeah, that is a real vampire, if you don't know, okay? Not Dracula. Okay, give me evidence that Dracula was a vampire, or was drinking or eating blood like they do today. Give me one proof for that, and then we can talk about him being a vampire. But that just shows you how Esau fucks up history in general. Okay, most history, that's the problem that you see today. It's not even history, but just lies. And if there's truth, then it's mixed with lies, which makes the whole thing what? A lie. Okay, so I don't talk about science, because science is always backed up by the Bible or the exact opposite. Okay, the Bible being backed up by science, but there's nothing that, where the one thing says that and the other thing says different. And that's the good thing about science, even maybe if you want. But there's also bad science, people mixing animals with humans, for example. Okay, I saw that in different countries. Okay, so don't get me wrong, but I talked to somebody who understands these things. Okay. Yeah. So Acts 15 and 19, like I said, wherefore my sentence is that we trouble not them which from among the Gentiles are turned to God, but that we write unto them that they abstain from pollutions of idols, and from fornication, and from things strangled, and from blood. For Moses of old time had in every city that preach him, being read in the synagogues every Sabbath day. Then pleased it the apostles and elders with the whole church to send chosen men of their own company to Antioch with Paul and Barnabas, namely Judas, surnamed Barsabas, and Silas, chief man among the brethren. Yeah, so verse 23, thou that makest thy boast of the Lord, through breaking the law dishonourest thou God. For the name, verse 24, of God is blasphemed among the Gentiles through you, as it is written. 25, for circumcision verily profited. Okay. If thou keep the law, but if thou be a breaker of the law, thy circumcision is made uncircumcision. Therefore, if the circumcision keep the righteousness of the law, shall not his uncircumcision be counted for circumcision, and shall not uncircumcision, which is by nature, if it fulfill the law, judge thee, who by the letter and circumcision doeth transgress the law. For he is not a Jew which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision which is outward in the flesh. Best example is the 1948ers outwardly. Okay, they are in our land. Okay, they can say by law that they are the Semites, so-called, because if you go into that term, then it doesn't is what they say. Okay, it's completely different thing. Okay, Ham, Sem, and Japhet, but okay. And yeah, okay. So outwardly they are the Jews, right? With the small heads, with the synagogues, even here in Germany, man. Okay, they're everywhere. Okay. Again, not judging the whole nation, which you can judge the whole nation, but still there's something out of that nation being righteous. Okay, and what is it that the people of the world believe? Not everybody. Okay, you have some knowing who they are. Okay, and coming out with that public, even, you know, people that you would never expect to do such things. Okay, but outwardly, okay, with the, of course, support of Esau. Without the support of Esau, you know, the other Edomites, the other Edomite nations in between Esau, it wouldn't be possible. Okay, because the media is a sword, is a structure in between the sword of Esau, which is the main structure. Okay, so that's why it's important even for you to get that alternative media sometimes. Okay. Anyway, verse 27, and shall not own circumcision which is by nature, if it fulfill the law, judge thee who by the letter and circumcision doeth transgress the law. For he is not a Jew which is it who, you know, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision which is outward in the flesh, but he is a Jew which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart in the spirit and not in the letter, whose praise is not of man but God. Khan.